here's what I'm going to do. Small as we are, but high quality. We're going to go through one by one. Just give us the 2-minute elevator pitch on your company and what's going on, and your relationship with the Yukon, and obviously, you can still mention the word Montana, even though we're geographically somewhere else. Mike Rowley, Group 10. Give us a quick summary of who is Group 10 or what is Group 10.
You bet. Thank you, Byron. Thank you all for joining us. Group 10 metals focused on critical minerals, being battery metals and precious metals in North America and in the best districts within North America beside advanced deposits of size. Byron mentioned our work in Montana. That is indeed our flagship property. That's not our focus today, but we share the Stillwater complex with Sibanye-Stillwater, which is a wonderful position for a junior to be in. We're very glad to be in the Yukon, and we have a very large land position, 255 square kilometers of claims in the Kluane Belt, which is not always widely talked about. The Yukon's known for gold, silver, and copper. It has terrific PGEs and nickel as well, and that's in this 600-kilometer belt that we're situated in beside my neighbor, and that makes an excellent segue to Nickel Creek Platinum.
Okay, Nickel Creek Platinum. We have Stuart Harshaw, and I'm going to give something away about Stuart, is that he is married to a woman named Heather White, who is among probably the 10 best mining engineers in the whole world, extremely smart. Don't let me embarrass you. I'm just telling the truth. And she was the engineer who put together a nickel deposit way up north called Voisey's Bay some years back. So, Stuart will stand on his own merits, of course, but I think when he has questions about, mining nickel, he probably goes home and says, "Hello, dear. Could we have a talk tonight about?" Tell us what it's like to run Nickel Creek, Stuart.
Thanks a lot. Yes, I do have very interesting conversations at home. Heather's got lots of insight. For Nickel Creek, for those that aren't aware, we're a very large play. We've got 323 million tons already in the M&I category with our Wellgreen deposit within the Nickel Show. We do have an 18-kilometer ultramafic stretch there, and our partners there are the Kluane First Nations, and we have a very strong relationship with them, and we'll be opening camp utilizing lots of our friends at the Kluane First Nation. Really, the focus for Nickel Creek is to take this deposit along the development curve, and we're with the nickel market where it is and the critical metals where it is. It's all about getting a PFS out in the next over the next 6 to 8 months.
Okay, thanks. Next, we'll talk with Metallic Minerals through Greg Johnson. I've known Greg for, 10 years or something like that. And in fact, full disclosure, you used to run the company that became Nickel Creek. But Metallic Minerals is different. I have a way of describing it. It's sort of the other half of the Alexco play in many respects. But so there's the Yukonian version of it, copper, silver, etc. And then they have another play down in Colorado. But Greg, give us a rundown on Metallic, please.
Yeah, you bet. Well, great to be here, Byron, again, and sitting with both of you. It's nice to be back here in VRIC in person. It's been a couple of years, so it's nice. So Metallic Minerals, our focus in the Yukon is our Keno silver project next door to Alexco. Mm-hmm. For those of you who are unaware, we've had 3 new mines come on stream in Yukon in the last couple of years. So it's really been a big event in Yukon to see those come back on stream. Alexco's ramping up and having good success, and they're finding great things as they go deeper on their Birmingham deposit. Metallic Minerals is exploring on the continuation of the trend to the east, and this is basically the eastern half of the Keno Hill Silver District. Historically, it was very patchwork land ownership. So we assembled this land package. The structures continue into the same geologic setting on the east. And we've been having great success the last couple of years defining large-scale targets and testing those, not only with the classic very high-grade style systems that we see on the western part of the district, but also in defining some new, for the first time ever, bulk tonnage silver systems. And so we're pretty excited about this year moving those towards not just mineral inventories, but a resource potentially on our advanced stage targets, and continuing to drill test some of those bulk tonnage systems where we're seeing those not just meter to 5 meter wide zones, but up to 100 meters of continuous silver mineralization.
Wow.
We've got a second asset in Yukon. We don't talk about it a lot, but we've got a large portfolio of unmined Klondike gold ground that we're basically licensing out to experienced operators. The advantage here is that you can get a placer mining permit in 6 months sometimes. So these are already permitted claims or leases, and we've got experienced operators that are taking these forward. They've done the drilling, they've done the bulk sample testing, and so this year we're hopeful that we'll see first commercial production on those, and we're in the process of trying to permit another dozen or so of those positions. So the opportunity for us is rapid move to cash flow, actual gold production from our royalty on those lands. So really helping to kind of build stability and long-term sustainability for metallic minerals. And then I'll just mention just quickly the very recent news on our Colorado project, where we've just tabled our first 43-101 resource on that. It's a porphyry system, copper, silver. We know gold and PGMs may come along later, but there wasn't as much data on that. But it's a large-scale system drilled by Rio Tinto and Phelps Dodge in the 50s and the 70s. We're excited to take this on. It's very similar to the project that we worked on at Nova Gold called Galore Creek, which some of you may be familiar with. So geologically, it's a really comparable project to that, and we're excited to have this second kind of leading asset that we can be exploring on.
Well, that's great. When we're talking with these gentlemen, the companies and the places they're working are all, historic mining areas. These are not just sort of greenfield, out in the middle of nowhere kind of places that, somebody did a geophysical hit or somebody saw something from a satellite. These places have been, dug up, prospected over the years. But when I say prospected, I just mean somebody was looking around for shiny stuff. They really haven't been explored using modern techniques. One of the things I'd like to do is, we mentioned that this is the first time we're back here in over 2 years since VRIC 2020 January. For a lot of people, certainly me, it's sort of like we were in suspended animation for a couple of years, just kind of going, whatever, just kind of bumping into walls and stuff. You can do things on Zoom and telephone and whatever. But Mike, I'll start with you again. Tell us what you have done in the last, 2 years, and since it's May, tell us what we're going to see this summer.
Sure. Well, awkward question because our focus is Montana, and we debuted some rather spectacular resources of size in that project. And Montana will continue to be the focus, being as it's our flagship. Mm-hmm. In the Yukon, wonderful rocks, wonderful people, and we're very pleased to work with Kluane Nation and also be good friends of the Champagne-Eshak Nations on the Kluane Belt there. We've just secured a YMAP funding, which is a wonderful thing about the Yukon, and they're supporting of the mining industry with these grant programs. That's in place, and we're looking forward to doing some target refinement work actually in the area of the Nickel Creek Nickel Show deposit right beside me here. Longer term, that's a big strategic land position, as I mentioned, and we're also looking for some partnership opportunities in there and getting good interest in that as well. Mm-hmm. So that's the outlook for Group 10.
I'll just mention that visiting Group 10 in Montana was the last field trip I took before COVID kind of shut the world down. And again, Montana, it was a fabulous. We jumped out of the helicopter, walked down the hill, and literally saw nickel sulfide coming out of the core barrel onto the drill deck. I mean, you can't fake that kind of stuff. There it was. Speaking of nickel, Stuart, your area has been, mined previously, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, Sumitomo, I think, or whatever.
It was 72 by Hudbay.
That long ago. Okay, yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah. But, tell us what is going on there, and what are we going to see this summer out of the program?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, the last 2 years, it's been we've been working on the geophysics side, primarily, mm-hmm. And last summer we did a drill program based on the results from the previous year's geophysics, and where we had some really good conductors. We hit high grade massive sulfides, 2 to probably 6% almost in terms of the contained nickel, and that's when you're hitting pentlandite and high grade massive sulfides, it's very exciting times. When you have trouble picking up the core, that's what you like, right? And so really for us, this following year, I mentioned that we've got the PFS, we got some work to do, a little bit of infill drilling and stuff for the PFS and some geotechnical data that we got to collect in order to complete it. And the other piece is to follow up on our good results side arch and do about 1,000 meters of drilling there, with a goal to, getting an inferred resource and getting an understanding. It's very shallow, real potential for a good kind of open pit starter, if you will, starting open pit for our project. So that's really where the focus is.
Okay. Greg, in terms of where you are on, as you said, the other half of the Alexco, the Keno Hill play, why didn't, 100 years ago, people were mining Keno Hill? Why didn't they mine over where you guys are? What are you adding to the geologic equation here with what you're doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So the western part of the district is more rugged, and so the veins literally outcrop out of the ground. And so the old timers could walk along and they could see these veins just sticking out of the ground in these areas on the western part of the district. As we go east, the terrain is more flat and rolling, and for Yukon standards, it's forested, taiga forest, so it's covered. So it was a lot more difficult for them to kind of see these prospects that were there. And so what we've relied on is modern techniques for exploration, such as soil sampling, where we do these wide-spaced grids at first and then fill them in when we get results, airborne geophysics, to really start to target on these systems. And that work has quickly demonstrated that we've got kilometric scale footprints for silver enriched mineralization that are correlating with geophysical anomalies. And so in the last couple of years, after doing all that work to compile the land position and to consolidate it, so it's unitized with us in Alexco, we went in and started to drill test some of those anomalies on the east. And even though they were, early stage, we hit on 38 out of 42 holes hit significant mineralization up to 100 meters in width, along with demonstrating that those high-grade structures from the west continue into that area. So it was really quite an exciting development coming out of what's really a very grassroots discovery, but in a long-lived, highly productive district.
Well, let's carry that idea just a little bit further, and Greg, we'll stick with you. The area has been mined for 100 years. Tell our audience a little bit about, what do you have in terms of infrastructure, power lines, workforce, those kind of things. What's up there?
Yeah, so one of the benefits, actually, all three companies have got great infrastructure. We've got roads, we've got power nearby. In the case of Keno Hill, we've got a mill in the center of the district. There's 4 megawatts of power on site. They're using 1 right now for the current mill, so there's room to expand. And we've got road access throughout the district. So this means that things we find, it means lower cost of exploration for us to do our work. And it means if you find something, you're going to be able to develop that at lower capital costs as well. And that's a huge advantage compared to, say, a grassroots, very remote project that relies only on helicopters.
Right.
So that's a great opportunity. A lot of investors don't appreciate that subtle distinction.
Yeah. Well, Stuart, you have no problems with infrastructure either, being on the Alaska Canada, America, Canada, Alaska highway there. Tell us a little bit about that. How far are you off the highway?
Yeah, we're only allowed, the deposit's about 14 kilometers off the highway, but where we're planning to put the mill would be only within a few kilometers of it on an existing road. So it's actually, from an infrastructure point of view, route to market all the way down to Skagway, it's pretty straightforward for us. Again, the biggest the issue in general in the Yukon is really power, and that's and I highlight that because we have LNG in our plans, and the prime reason being that the Yukon has been, with the new projects that have come online, have started to cap out in terms of its capabilities. So we have to put in a power source, and LNG is lucky for us being close to the Alaska Highway. That's a possibility for us.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I visited the site, and we flew into a nearby airport called Burwash. Is that right?
Burwash. Yep.
Yeah, Burwash. Yeah. So it's air access, highway access, and it's major highway. I mean, there's big, heavy 18-wheeler trucks that go up and down that road.
Yeah, the U.S. Army Corp, I believe, built it back in the day.
Back in the World War II. Yeah. Mike, tell us a little bit about how to get to your projects. Just can we? I've been there, so I know the answer. But
the Kluwani projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just like Stuart here, we're right along the highway there.
Yeah.
And similar access, all sort of 10 kilometers in, sometimes gravel roads in our case, as we're not a past producer like them. But the exploration upside is very real there, and the access is excellent.
Yeah. I mean, I can't emphasize how much good highway access and nearby power lines mean to any project. But you literally shave millions, if not tens of millions of dollars off of development costs, and it really leverages the economics. Now, interestingly, this is a panel of what you might call battery metals guys. I mean, nickel, copper, silver. PGMs and some platinum group metals, which have their own uses. I mean, there's some cobalt in there. Mike, I'll start back with you. In terms of the people that you've been dealing with who would be potential buyers of the product, what's the market doing out there? Is this one of these flash in the pan things where if you don't catch the cycle, you're out of it for the next another 10 years or something, or what?
No, when it comes to battery metals and PGMs as well, both Canada and the U.S., of course, have lists now of critical minerals, and those are on it. Nickel, cobalt, PGEs, you name it. All with a view of securing domestic supply. And events in Russia lately have really brought that into front and center. And then also China's control of these critical minerals. On average, they control 80% of the world's supply of critical minerals, 100% for graphite, 60% for nickel, other numbers for other commodities. This is getting very real now in this day and age with countries looking at security of their own supply. Americans I know, working in the U.S. as I do, have got this memo big time. Canadians as well. Mm-hmm. And it's real. And with nickel, you also have to consider nickel sulfide versus the laterite nickels as well, and the environmental quality of that supply. Maybe I'll leave that for Stuart to follow up on.
I was just going to say, Stuart comes from a professional background of bigger mining companies, and so sort of the same question, but give us a kind of the big mining guy look at view of the world there, Stuart.
Big mining guy, I like that. That's COVID 20 pounds that I have, right? The nickel market is at one of those stages that we've been waiting for many years. It's really highlighted, the laterites really changed the game back in 2007. It came at a time when we needed nickel. Prices had spiked. We didn't have enough sulfides coming out. And over the last decade, essentially, the laterites have kept the nickel price kind of hovering in between that $6 and, let's say, $7.50, kind of $5 to $8 if you want to get a good enough range. Really too low to develop most of the sulfides in the world. And that's because literally China was able to come in and do it quickly. So what's happened now is really we're at a stage where that's been developed and continue to develop as much as it can, but we need pure nickel. The EV market, so everybody's heard of the batteries, everybody hears of lithium batteries. Well, the lithium battery is actually a nickel battery. It's primarily nickel. Most of the values in the battery is nickel, and we need to essentially double the amount of nickel that we have currently being mined and sourced worldwide in order to meet the increased demand over the next decade. Last time I checked, resources do not double very easily. It takes 5 to 7 years minimum to take a project through from start to finish, and we're looking at a decade needing to double. So we're at an extremely exciting time for nickel specifically, and I would actually throw cobalt and copper into it, but different dynamics around the copper and cobalt. But for the nickel specifically, it's actually at a stage where I would say we're at risk. And that's why Elon Musk is going crazy out there and saying he's going to buy mines and he's talking to everybody under the sun. It's an example of the pressure that the downstream OEMs are having on essentially the nickel supply.
Thank you. Greg, your neighbor Alexco is, they're considered a silver company, but they produce a couple different concentrates, one with zinc and one with lead. And what is it that you're finding in your acreage that would be the product that you would come out with?
Yeah, so our mineralization is very comparable to Alexco. Alexco produces two concentrates, a lead concentrate that the silver reports to, and it's a very high in-demand concentrate because of the extremely high silver grades that go into that. And then they also produce a modest amount of zinc concentrate. So they sell two products, the lead silver being the main product, and then the zinc being a nice supplement, if you will, a nice credit. So the high-grade mineralization would be very compatible with that. We'll have to see as we start to look at the lower-grade bulk tonnage silver. It's also coming with lead and zinc. We'd have to see what the metallurgy will be in that. It's pretty early days, but certainly the high-grade structures across the whole district have a very comparable metallurgical profile, and we'd be expecting them to be very compatible with what Alexco is doing.
And then is it fair to say that, whatever you would mine, would you be able to partner up in terms of using the mill at Alexco, or would you have to?
Well, potentially, it could be a real opportunity for both companies, right? So you see Alexco, they've ramped up, they're going into production. They've only got an 8-year mine life right now. They're working on adding. They've had some good success. I think they will continue to find more at the drill bit. But with us being in the district as well, if we find something that's right on the road and it's maybe open pitable, it opens up opportunities for collaboration between the two groups. And that's a real opportunity for that unitized district in that way. And maybe in some ways with Group 10 and Nickel Creek in a similar way. It's great to have exploration going in and around these advanced stage projects or even operating mines as a future source of supply.
Yeah, well, it's all about feeding the mill once you have the mill.
That's right.
Well, Stuart, talk to us about processing whatever ore you would bring up. What's the metallurgy that you're dealing with, and how would you physically handle it to the point where you can put it on a truck and sell it to somebody else?
Yeah, it's actually, lucky enough, it's fairly straightforward when it comes to nickel mineralogy. So the mill process, it's just large volume. So you're talking about a 45,000 ton per day. So it's large, and it's pretty straightforward. Not a lot of complexity in the mill. We have the option to produce both a nickel concentrate and a copper concentrate, or do a bulk, and that will be really a decision that we make through the feasibility in terms of just the economics versus the both. You obviously get paid more for a copper concentrate for the copper that's in a copper concentrate, but it comes with added costs and complexities. So we'll do a trade-off study on that. But actually getting it to market, now the conversation of how do you get things to market, I come from that space. I managed it for Enco and Vale. The smelters of the world have been for quite a long time fairly hungry with a fair amount of space available, and as long as that continues, there's going to be a lot of hungry people looking for the nickel.
Okay, very good. Mike, let's sort of do a little geographic transformation here. You're working in Montana, as you mentioned, and you're right next to the old Stillwater, which is now Sibanye-Stillwater program. What's the metallurgical and the engineering infrastructure there to take ore out of the ground and turn it into something that you can sell and bring the cash register?
Sure, yeah. Where do I begin? They have what's known as a reef-type deposit, narrow high grade, and they're mining that in 3 spots.
This is Sibanye.
Yes. It's actually the highest grade of its type in the world, and the largest in the Western Hemisphere. It's a very beautiful thing. It is at its core a nickel sulfide system. So they are underground mining and then running conventional flotation and then a smelter refinery operation in Columbus. It's also the world's largest recycler of auto catalytic converters too, which is a neat touch for the mining business. Our model is more of a bulk mining model, and that's correct for where we are in the Stillwater complex. We have narrow reef deposits similar to theirs, but we're focused on the bulk mining scenario. Really, because we're also a sulfide system, they could, in theory, punch through from the north. And this is a very forward-looking statement. There's no, this is not being talked about in any way. In theory, they could punch through from the north into our deposit areas, and our feed, in broad terms, could be appropriate for their systems in a very broad sense. It's all conventional flotation, sulfide mineralogy. I think there would have to be an upgrade in size that would be significant, because we would be going to a bulk mining model.
I want all three of you gentlemen to explain to the audience a very quick rundown of your share structure, and if somebody wants to buy shares, what exchanges should they look at and where should they go? Greg, why don't you kick off?
Yeah, so Metallic Minerals is listed in Canada under symbol MMG, and in the US as MMNGF on the OTCQB. We've got pretty good liquidity. We trade about 250,000 shares a day typically. The company is well financed. We're fully financed in 2020 to be able to make both projects, Keno Silver and La Plata, to our next major milestone. We have no debt, and it's looking like it's going to be a pretty exciting year for us.
Okay, great. Stuart, tell us about Nickel Creek.
Yeah, from Nickel Creek, we're on the TSX, not the TSXV, and we have it's under NCP. We are fully funded for our program this year. Just finished our raise last week, and we're from a share structure point of view, we've got about 392 million shares outstanding, but it's actually at a point right now where I didn't want to dilute anymore, so I raised just what I needed for this year's program, and when we get our results out, I'm looking forward to seeing some real movement.
Okay, so there's money in the bank, and then you'll drill, and the results will speak for themselves, and we'll take it from there. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Mike Rowley of Group 10. Tell us about the company and how to buy some of those shares.
Thank you, Byron. The ticker symbol is PGE, Platinum Group Element, and that's on the TSX Venture. On the OTCQB, it is PGEZF, or if you're Canadian, PGEZF. We have 170 million shares outstanding. We're a bargain at 28 cents today, as are my peers up here. It's a good time to be looking at these quality stocks. We are funded through our current milestones. We have about $3 million in the bank, and we have a good number of warrants in the money that are coming in quickly here this year. So we're funded through resource expansion and even this year's exploration programs.
Well, that's what we like to hear, money in the bank and a plan to spend it wisely and find value in the ground and in the rocks. And with that, we're out of time. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, audience. Thank you, YouTube people who watch this eventually. Three great companies, Metallic Minerals, Nickel Creek Platinum, and Group 10 Metals. This is Byron King signing us all off. Goodbye. Good luck to us all.